Hello. We're still waiting for everybody to show up. How are you today?
Okay.
Good.
Ooh, things went dark.
So have you read the book, seen the movie, both?
Neither.
All right.
I just thought that was very interesting. I'm just
Yeah.
kind of interesting is, does the personality get downloaded when they do the clone? Oops.
Wouldn't that be neat?
Well,
Yeah. What is that, nature versus nurture?
well, I can't see why you'd want to have the same exact replica if you didn't have the personality, because that's what makes the animal.
That would be interesting. All right. Well, we've still got 5 minutes and our presenter is not yet on. So I'm going to email her again. I'm going to, can you see my screen?
I can, but it's kind of weird. It's sort of half and half.
Right. Need more people. I'm gonna stop sharing. Hello, for those who are all coming on. We're still waiting for our presenter. I'm going to email her real quick because she is joining us from Texas.
What happened to my voice?
Hello, everybody who is still logging in. You are at the Westerville Library Tell Me More cloning session. So with us, we are going to have Jillian from Viagen Pet and Equine Center. It looks like she is still logging in. Let's see. And this will be recorded and is live on YouTube at the moment. So I would recommend going ahead and turning off your video unless you want to appear on camera everywhere. There she is. Hi, Jillian.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
All right, thank you. I was actually making tea when I got your email. So
Yay.
let's see.
You are
There we go.
joining, and you're joining us from Texas, right?
I'm actually in New York.
Oh, you're in New York.
Rochester. Yeah.
Fantastic. Even better. All right. We still have about 2 minutes. I will be admitting people as they come on.
Okay.
Jillian, I am going to go ahead and make you the co-host.
Okay.
And I do not think that I am sharing my screen at the moment.
Oh, yeah. I can see you with your background. But
Right. Do you want to go ahead and share your screen? Do you have something to share?
I have a PowerPoint,
Excellent.
and
We can pull that up, help people know that they're in the right spot.
that'll work. Let's see. Maybe I was playing with this earlier.
Okay, and I do have the chat up and where is it? And the participants up.
Okay.
So everybody, as we are getting ready, just some housekeeping. So you are at the Tell Me More Book Club. Today we are featuring Jillian from Viagen Pets and Equine. Is it center or is it just, what's the name?
Viagen Pets and Equine.
Okay,
Yeah.
there you go. I keep wanting to stick an extra word on the end of that.
Yeah, it's been in development, but I think we settled pretty securely on that. So
There you go. All right, and this is being recorded for everyone who signed up. Since it is, if everyone would go ahead and turn off your video, I am turning that off. Also, please make sure that you are muted. We will take questions at the end. I really recommend that in order to, remember your question. Oh, actually, Jillian, do you want to allow questions during, or do you want to wait till the end?
I don't know what would be easiest. I'm fine either way. The PowerPoint's very quick.
Okay.
Maybe wait till after.
Yeah. All right. So on Zoom, if you all look at the bottom of your screen, you should see a chat feature. Really recommend that you use that to go ahead and put your question in. I will be asking questions based on the ones in the chat and in that order. So yeah, type them in there. If you want to share any resources, put them in there too. Okay, and then I will turn off my camera as well. And Jillian, it is 3 o'clock. All right, well, everyone, thank you for coming today. Today is the latest insert for the Tell Me More Book Club. Today we are featuring Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. And those of you who haven't read the book have probably seen the movie. And, that's fine. The movie did a very, very good job. So, yes. So 1 second, I have notes that are blocked by my screen. 1 sec. It'll zoom. All right, so Jillian Benavides is an embryologist at Viagen Pets and Equine, and she works on the cloning team. So I am very, very excited that you decided to talk to us today. I've been looking forward to this for a year. So post-COVID, kind of post-COVID.
Right.
All right, I'm going to turn off my mic, and again, welcome.
Well, hi, everybody. I've been with the cloning team, I guess, a little over a year. I started off at Viagen as a cell culturist. So I was on the end where we received the tissue samples for pets, which I'll go into how that process works. I started off in Texas. I have a pretty extensive scientific background, and they thought I'd be a good fit in the cloning team. And so here I am, and it's been kind of a wild, mad scientist-y trip. And when you look at the science of it, it's actually, as far as science goes, it's pretty basic. But it's a neat process, and it's just kind of incredible that we can do it at this point. A lot of people don't realize that cloning has become commercialized. We're obviously doing it with dogs, cats, and horses in our company. There's another company that does mainly livestock. So cattle, sheep. There we go. I'm sorry about that. That popped up. Cattle, sheep. They do a lot of pigs. They do some other crazy stuff. I know, for example, deer in Texas are pretty popular to clone. So pretty much if it's a mammal, we can clone it fairly easily. Other species where we as a company are not working on yet, but a lot of research labs are. Egg-bearing species are a little bit more difficult, and I'll get into why that is. But just to start off with what Viagen does is, oh, that's probably not going to work. We take a pet and, it can be alive. We take a live tissue sample. Your vet will usually do it if that's what you want to do, or if it passes away, we can take tissue from that and use that to clone. We've had a lot of success in terms of getting tissue from animals that have been dead for even as far out as a week, sometimes 2, depending on if the body was stored correctly. Sometimes we can still get live cells. And that's the important part for our cloning, is we need live cells to be able to get active DNA from those to be able to clone. So if it's something where the animal has been, the tissue has been frozen, or it's been dead for too long, decomposing, we can't unfortunately use that sort of thing to get through. We are working on technology that might help us with that. I've had a lot of bone samples sent to me to collect bone marrow from, and that's been a really interesting process. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think right now the longest I've been able to get live bone marrow tissue from is about 2 weeks. So we'll see where that goes. This is a cat known as Carbon Copy. She was one of the first ones that we cloned at Viagen, and the original lived to be over 19, and I think the clone lived to be about that as well. This is another horse called Pure Taylor Fit, who's a very famous roping quarter horse, and there are actually numerous clones of this one floating around because he was very, very popular in terms of a roping and rodeo. So I'm sure all of you know about Dolly the sheep, the first cloned animal. We still use that same exact technology to clone. There's some controversy there because people have said that Dolly was died early because she was a cloned, which is essentially true, but she didn't die early because of the cloning process. She died early because she was a novelty. So she had a lot of attention. She was getting fed a lot of treats. She ended up obese. She was living in conditions that really aren't great for sheep to live in because, they wanted her on display for everybody to see. So essentially she got fat and worn out and just died an early death because of poor health. Had nothing to do with the cloning process as far as anybody can tell. And ever since then, we've been cloning livestock with pretty regular, with no problems at all. They live nice, normal, long lives. The pets do, as far as we've seen so far as well. And it's been pretty neat. Let's see. This is a dog named Bumer, who we've cloned, that belongs to a celebrity, but we had extras of this one born. So one of the people in our company has an extra Bumer, just because the client was very generous and knew that the employee loved him as much as she did, because he helped raise the puppies, and she went ahead and gave him one of hers, which was pretty neat. This clone is still alive, living in Canada with one of our embryologists up there. Bruce Wayne is another one. We actually cloned 6 or 7 of these puppies. Sometimes the cloning process is hit or miss. We either get one, sometimes it takes a couple tries. Sometimes you end up with a whole litter of clones, and this client thought that was fantastic. So she has all the puppies, and she has an Instagram called I Party with Bruce Wayne. That's pretty funny to watch. As far as the company itself, Viagen Pets and Equine has been part of a couple different companies on and off, and we've been our own company for 3 or 4 years now, just completely separate from the livestock side. And we mostly do horses, dogs, and cats. We are branching off into endangered species, which I'll show you some of those. We've cloned the first puppy in the United States. I think the first cat completely. There's a couple companies scattered around the world that do this sort of thing, but they don't have the same success as we do. We do have offices in Texas, New York, and Alberta, Canada. Texas is mostly where we collect the initial tissue and where it's stored. New York is our dog and cat cloning facility, and Canada is where they clone the horses. And then we have a few places scattered around the United States where the horses, for example, get raised, just because it's easier to have multiple places like that for the clients. This is Prestige, a Bengal cat, which there are some laws around Bengals and Savannah cats and things like that. But this was one we were able to clone in a place that was legal for it. And we actually have an extra one of these that belongs to another person here at Biogen. We usually don't have too many extras. Usually the clients really want to keep them all themselves, but once in a while, somebody just wants one, which is understandable. And when that does happen, we do try to find them homes. And usually they do end up with us employees, just because we end up attached to them because we're there for the whole process. So the way the tissue collection works is, a vet, for example, will anesthetize your animal. They'll take a sample about the size of an eraser, not very big. We usually ask for about 4. So the stomach is a common place when the animal's alive. When the animal has passed, we usually like to get ear tissue because for some reason the ear is very viable and stays alive the longest. And I'm not real sure why, but that's usually where we get the most success. That gets shipped to our lab in Texas, where they process it as soon as they get it. They'll throw it into a flask and culture it until we get somewhere aiming over for at least 1 million cells. A lot of times, if you give it a week or 2 to grow, we'll end up with 6, 7, 8 million cells. And then we go ahead and cryopreserve that. And this is actually one of our big tanks that we have at Texas to preserve them in. So we have storage in Texas, we have storage at a private company in California, and we have storage up here in New York. So no matter what, if something happens at one of the facilities, we have backup samples at all of our locations. This is a famous barrel horse known as Latte. This client has actually cloned Latte with us more times than I can think of right now, multiple times. And she has had just great success in the rodeo circuit with her horses. She's very open about it. If you do ever go to the national finals and all that, you'll probably see her on one of her clones. Georgia is just one that was kind of dear to us. She's a very cute black lab dog. Her owner drove the original around in his sidecar on his motorcycle. And as soon as they got their 2 puppies, he said they sat in there with the original and drove around, and was pretty popular, and just kind of one that we all fell in love with. This is Dennis. He works up here with me in New York. He's our lead embryologist. He's on vacation this week, so you guys got me instead of him. But these are the first 2 cats we cloned. This is Cece. It was pretty exciting. He actually took home the cat that gave birth to those kittens and has that cat. Her name is Cheeto, living with them, and she's a pretty happy cat with him, which is neat. We do adopt out surrogates if they don't already have homes before, so we try to make sure everything we do is as ethical as possible. When we are ready to clone your animal, for example, we'll take the cells that were frozen, and we take an oocyte, which is an egg, and we remove the nucleus from it. So we pull out all the DNA from that oocyte, and it's just this empty cell pretty much sitting there with no DNA in it. It has all the machinery to become an embryo, but it just doesn't have DNA. So we'll take a cell and inject it into the embryo, the cell from the animal we want to clone, and then we treat the whole thing like it is an actual embryo. We activate it, which it can be a chemical or electrical process that kind of replicates what goes on in the uterus. And that will cause the cell from the animal that we want to clone that's in that embryo to break down the cell wall and essentially give the DNA to the embryo. So once that happens, the embryo is like, okay, we're an actual embryo. We have a full set of DNA, and that gets put into a surrogate animal, and it goes on like a normal embryo would. It grows in the surrogate animal, and a couple months after that, usually, dog or cat will give birth to puppies naturally and raise them like normal puppies. And yeah, pretty much we they're just normal animals once they get past birth. And if we usually don't have any issues with them, reproduction's kind of weird. There are lots of issues, and my background is in reproduction, and I know through research and everything, I'm just kind of in awe every day that things exist, that anything can reproduce, to be perfectly honest. So the things we do run into with cloning are not really anything different from what I've seen in raising sheep and cattle. So it's a lot of weird stuff, and we do probably see a little more instances of like occasional weird things, like birth defects and things, but given how much we do, it's not, in my head, not too unusual in what we see. Oh, and so we do actually clone endangered animals now. We partnered with San Diego Zoo and Revive and Restore. Our very first endangered cloned animal was this is Kurt. He's a Przewalski horse that was raised in Texas, and he's in San Diego. I don't know if he's on display yet, but they're trying to adapt him to the herd out there at the San Diego Wildlife Park, because he's going to go in and he's going to become part of that family there. Kurt was actually cloned from DNA at the San Diego Frozen Zoo that had been stored for over 40 years. So his genetic diversity is going to be incredible to add to that whole population. Przewalski horses are from Mongolia, and they don't actually have any in the wild there anymore. They do have a herd that lives in the Mongolian steppes that is technically wild, but they do have to round them up in the winter. They do have to keep an eye on them because people will kill them, competition with their livestock and all. But it's going to be really interesting to see how this all goes. San Diego Zoo does have other stuff they want us to do, so this was a good first test. And last I heard, he's thriving. He's an honorary little colt who's giving everybody a run for their money, which is great. The next one was a black-footed ferret, which is native to North America. We cloned one from DNA that was 30 years old. They've had one successful. Her name is Elizabeth Ann, and yeah, you can go see her actually at the Revive and Restore Center. I want to say it's north of Denver, but I can't remember the exact place. But they do, once they open, I don't know if they're open after COVID restrictions. Ferrets are very susceptible to COVID, so they may still be closed. But once that facility opens again, you can actually go see Elizabeth Ann, and you can actually see the surrogate that had her, because they're keeping her there to be part of the family. So that part has been really neat. The fact that we can help bring back these species potentially from the brink is really exciting for Biogen, and we've got stuff in the works that I can't share yet because nothing is solid, but it's looking really, really neat for conservation in the future. And yeah, that's about it for Biogen. Yeah, and I can take whatever questions we've got now.
Okay, I'm going to start reading. So I've put a few in here, and everybody feel free to, again, get on chat and enter in your questions. So one thing from what you brought up, where do the unfertilized eggs come from?
That's a really good question. We put on spay and neuter clinics in areas usually that have a population that want to help these pets, but may not always have the money to do that. So we sponsor these clinics. We pay for the surgery, for the medication, whatever the animal needs afterwards. So we'll have people who have cats that they want spayed. They'll bring them in. The vet clinics we partner with will spay them. They'll save the ovaries for us, and they'll ship the ovaries up to us. And we have a process where we take those ovaries, we can get all the eggs out and mature them in our lab and use those. So dogs and cats, horses, they don't spay horses. So they do flushing, which is a process that's used pretty commonly in horse reproduction and livestock production, where they have a hormone cocktail that they give the horse to get them to ovulate, and then they go in and collect eggs in the uterus. It's something that you could probably look up on YouTube if you are really interested. I have a livestock background, so I went through all this in grad school and everything else, but I don't know if you guys want the nitty-gritty details on something like that. But yeah, so mostly spay and neuter clinics for the pets. The horses are on a facility in Canada where we collect them like that. So.
Okay. Next, do the surrogates live at Viagen, or do you farm out that service?
We farm out that service. Most of the animals are ones that people that we've partnered with that are comfortable with this. They're, it's kind of a weird thing because, surrogates are you have to have a surrogate for cloning. Like, there's no getting around that. But we're lucky that we have some really good partners that help us with that. Usually the animal has a home that they stay in, that they go to with it. But there are occasionally, like, depending on where we're at in the process, we do have some animals that we actually own that we take care of. And those are ones that we only use a surrogate twice tops. We never try to use them any more than that. And then once the ones that don't have homes are done for us, we find them a home. The two guys who are bosses, Blake and Sean, both have surrogate moms. I know Dennis is waiting for another surrogate mom, dog, for example, to come up. I've taken surrogate moms to homes around the country myself, and we'll probably end up with a surrogate mom here at my house at some point. My fiance is allergic to cats, so unfortunately we won't have a cat surrogate, but we will have a dog surrogate as part of our family when one becomes available. So yeah.
Okay. So when you are cloning the endangered species, is it better, if you have a choice, is it better to clone a male or a female?
That's a really good one. San Diego chose a male for the Przewalski horses because based on the DNA age, they have an option of having so many things in their frozen zoo. But I believe that one was the oldest DNA they had for that species, and that animal hadn't existed in 4 decades. So they thought that there was going to be a really good chance that his DNA can contribute a lot of diversity to that group. So we're hoping that their breeding program takes off with Kurt. And I imagine if it does, he'll have some offspring that they'll ship to other places to try and put more diversity in other places around the United States. I don't know if they would allow any of that DNA back to China, or Mongolia, where that would probably be beneficial, but that was kind of what they're hoping to eventually accomplish, as far as I remember. The black-footed ferret, they actually sent us samples for a male and a female. And in that particular instance, the female is the one that was born. The male, for whatever reason, just didn't go straight to term, which happens. We do have plans of revisiting that, I think, later this year. They have a cloning or a breeding schedule at their facility they try to stick with. And so we'll try to do the male this next time that we do it. We'll probably try and do the female again because Elizabeth Ann's DNA is so old that they'd like to try and get that diversity within their facility as well. So.
All right, thank you. Someone asks, what about personality of the original? Is the clone just a copy without the previous personality, or do you actually get the personality in there?
That's a good question. It's hard to say. We have a lot of clients that swear the personality is the same, especially if they only get one clone. It could be wishful thinking. It could be that they have the same personality. It's a question of nature versus nurture. So if you were to get a clone and raise them exactly as the original was, there's a good chance it would be the same exact personality, but that circumstance doesn't really exist. But we do get a lot of people that say that the animal's doing something just like the original did. For example, we have a bucking horse. I can't remember his name. We call him Monster because he's just this ginormous, gorgeous animal, but he's just so big. But the clone would walk right up to the fence and stick his tongue out to the side because he wants you to pet his tongue, which we just thought was a weird thing with that horse. No, the owners of the original swear the original did the same exact thing. He'd come up, stick his tongue out to the exact same side, wanted you to pet his tongue. It's just something real weird like that. We've had a lot of those instances. Just a lot of like weird quirks that came out in the clone that we thought maybe something was wrong in how we were raising them initially, or something happened during transport, something that we thought we might have done, we didn't mean to, but the clients for the most part have always confirmed that the original had that weird quirk too. So that's been really neat. The ones that do get more than one clone will on occasion say one of them is more like the original than the other, but they seem to think that even however many they have, all have some of the same quirks or some of the same personality. So there's some genetic component to personality, but I don't know that you get the same exact animal once it's cloned. It's just kind of impossible to replicate how you raised the original.
Sure, thank you. And someone asks, what is the average cost for something like this?
The cost is up there for cloning. Preservation of DNA, just to have your cells stored, is on the cheaper end. It initially is $1,400, so $1,400, and then $100 a year after that to maintain them. So there's that, and that's at least a more reasonable thing for most people. To clone a cat right now is $35,000. To clone a horse is $90,000, and a dog is $50,000. It's pretty high. It's pretty steep. That's because we have to make sure everything's paid for the surrogates, for the spay clinics, for the whole process along the way. And also, we do need to make money so we can keep doing things. We are working on bringing that price down. I'm not sure when that will happen because it's hard to say, but that's been one of our focuses, especially the last half of this past year, was trying to drop costs and everything else. And I know the board of directors, I believe they have a meeting at the end of this year to see how we can drop prices. We would like this to become something that is available for most people. Like right now, it's, do you want a clone or do you want a nice new car, essentially, in terms of price? The horse people are much more willing to pay the $90,000 because these usually do end up valuable animals. The dogs and cats are a little pricey, and we are hoping to drop that down so that way that's more affordable to more people, because it's up there.
Thank you. So how do you use a surrogate for an endangered species? So do you, like, if the other animal doesn't exist anymore and you try to do like to like, what do you do for an endangered or extinct species?
So the endangered species, the two that we've done have been very easy, which is nice. The Przewalski horse, we actually just put into a normal horse. Just went right into a quarter horse mare surrogate that we had. She raised him like she was her own. Like you would have never guessed they were a different species from how the mom treated the baby. You could tell the difference looking, but the moms all respond kind of the same. They don't care because that's their baby. The black-footed ferret we actually put into a domestic ferret, like a pet ferret. We've had good success with that so far. So we'll probably stick with that for those. There's talk of doing, big cats at some point, like jaguars or something like that. And I'm not sure how we're going to tackle that one yet. We do work on occasion with somebody who does embryo transfer in tigers and lions and that sort of thing. And she thinks that we could be very successful putting cloned jaguar embryos into an actual jaguar. So I'm not sure that's something that we would have to work out, because there obviously aren't a ton of jaguars around just available for that process. It would need a lot of synchronizing. We may have to freeze the embryos first, and usually freezing embryos decreases our chances of success. But that's one of the things we have to plan. As far as extinct animals, which is a great segue, Revive and Restore actually has woolly mammoth DNA. And there's always talk of that, right? Like, my job is kind of mad sciencey, and the idea of cloning something like that is really exciting. And I totally get the whole Jurassic Park feel, because if I could clone a dog-sized T-Rex, I would do it in a heartbeat. It probably wouldn't be the best thing in the world, but we all have fantasies of maybe a Triceratops on a leash or something, right? But the mammoth, for example, we would probably try to put into an actual elephant if we ever decided to give that a try. So we don't talk seriously on that end yet, but I mean, it's always part of the topic. So.
All right. And I do have to ask you, this is interrupting the line of questions, but what do you think of Jurassic Park?
Oh, I love it. I saw that movie when I was a preteen, I guess. And it was just, I was a dinosaur dork growing up, and it was just the coolest movie ever. I read the book right after and loved the book. And like I said, I could totally, all the horror movie part of it aside, if we could clone dinosaurs, I would probably be on board with it.
Now, to be truthful, did it play any part in the decision of your career?
I mean, the science part of it, yes. The science part of it was just fascinating. Michael Crichton did a great job going through science in all his books. It's always sci-fi in his, but it was great to read about and have that in the back of my head as I was going through grad school. I actually went to I call it farmer school, but New Mexico State University, and I worked with livestock. I did a lot of reproduction stuff with livestock, mostly hormones, but lots and lots of just different techniques that they do over there. So I, initially thought I'd be a vet, and then got back more into the science part of it and went with that. So I didn't realize that cloning was this normal process when I was in grad school, and I'm trying to think what the original company was called. The original company doesn't exist anymore. It was doing it right after Texas A&M, but they took the commercial part of it with the livestock to a whole new level. And once I realized that was there, it kind of took my imagination and ran with it. And getting this job with Biogen has been pretty amazing. So Jurassic Park has always kind of been there at the background, and the fact that we could be this close is kind of neat. Dinosaurs probably aren't anywhere in the actual future of cloning, mostly because all of our cloning processes right now require live DNA, which is not easy to actually replicate in lab. We could know a whole DNA segment and put nucleotides together for that, but actually putting all of that together as DNA is not really something anybody's been able to accomplish with a lot of success. There's a lot of mutations, a lot of things that happen in the transcoding process that just get really warped. And until we can figure that part out, we probably aren't going to look at cloning anything that we don't have live DNA for. but we're getting close. We're close.
Yeah, I remember in the book, that's what they did, is they were missing parts of the DNA, and they just used frog DNA?
Frog DNA, and a few, I think they mentioned a couple other things. That idea in itself is really neat. And we do actually have technology for that. We don't use it as a company, but we do have some people that want to partner up that use, for example, CRISPR technology. There's somebody, I don't know if we're partnering with him anytime soon, but he has used CRISPR to create hypoallergenic cats, which is awesome. And I would totally be able to have a cat if we ended up with that as a normal thing. So there's
Can you tell us what CRISPR is?
CRISPR, CRISPR. Oh, I don't remember the whole acronym. Let me look that up real quick. It is a technology that uses microbes to pull out DNA sequences and put them into other DNA sequences. So it's a bit much, but essentially the whole pulling DNA from a frog and putting it into the dinosaur DNA, that would be a CRISPR thing. That's a little bit more than what CRISPR actually does, but that's the best way to describe it. CRISPR stands for clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeats, which are just, DNA sequences. DNA is pretty complicated. We do know certain things that code for certain things in the cell, but there's so much of it that we just have no idea what it's doing in there. So until we can figure all that out, creating dino DNA probably is out there.
Somebody says that the endangered horse that you mentioned, isn't there a herd in the Ohio wilds? The wilds in Ohio.
I don't know. I know that there were some of those at one of the zoos in Ohio. I know Columbus Zoo had Schmalskis. I don't know if they got loose.
No, the wilds is actually a part of Columbus Zoo. So it's probably it.
So, yeah. Okay. I was thinking of a roaming out there. I know, the Southwest, for example, New Mexico has oryx, which are an African antelope running loose. So it wouldn't surprise me in the least bit if we had other things running loose everywhere. So, but I know Columbus had them. So if the wilds is a zoo facility, I bet they're there. So.
That is cool. And Samantha mentions, not a question, but she loves your coffee mug. So
yeah, thank you. I saw that. Yeah, I thought it was pretty appropriate.
Somebody's going to ask, where did you get it?
It was a gift, and I think it was something they bought on Etsy.
That is pretty great. And apropos, has a clone ever escaped the facility or from, wherever it's being surrogated?
No. The main reason being is usually they're babies with us. They get born, they live normal, natural lives. For the most part, especially the dogs and cats, we treat them as if we're a breeder, essentially. They stay with their parents and their family until about 8 weeks old. And then just depending on the breed and size of the animal, like smaller puppies, like Chihuahuas and small breeds, we try to keep a little bit longer because they seem to develop better in terms of knowing dog language and being more confident in themselves and that sort of thing. If we wait till about 10 weeks to send them home. But yeah, we've never had any of them escape because they're just, usually too little. The horses, I don't think we've ever had any of those take off. We have 3 facilities around where the horses get raised, and I'm pretty sure all of these facilities are professional breeders, so they have it down, I'm sure, and don't have to worry about that. So the endangered animals, we've only done the 2, and those are pretty heavily regulated, so none of those yet, but you never know.
Has anyone ever wanted a refund?
I don't think we've ever had anyone ask for a refund. There probably is. I don't deal with the client side a whole lot because I'm usually in the lab, but I do deliver puppies and kittens and occasionally horses to clients. But usually, they're so happy to have a puppy that it's a good experience for both of us. So usually our guarantee is that you get a healthy animal. So if there's something like, for example, we had an Akita client, and Akitas are prone to eye problems genetically. The original had no eye problems, but we had a puppy born that had a recessed eye, ended up blind in that eye. It was a genetic thing, got the DNA tested, or the clients got the DNA tested because they were curious about that. They ended up taking that puppy, but we went ahead and just made another clone for him that had thankfully the second one was born without any issues, and everything worked out great with that. But that's an example of Biogen's promise to give you a healthy animal. I know we've had, let's see, we had some that were born, some German Shepherds that were born where one had a heart murmur, and heart murmurs are common in puppies. Usually it's like a very minor thing that they grow out of, but this one didn't grow out of it. She had 4 though. The other 3 were healthy. I think she was upset at the 4th one having a heart, murmur, which you can't blame her. Like those, were her puppies and her clones, and represented the animal that she had lost and everything else. So she was upset with that, but I don't think she asked for a refund. I think she just wanted to make sure that the rest of them were fine and was fine with that. But occasionally, there are some things that pop up, and we try to do whatever we can to make it right. Like we have a vet on staff, and if we need to, we can always go down to Cornell for consults and things like that. So for the most part, like every animal we've sent home has been pretty healthy. We try not, if there is something that looks like it might be a problem down the line, we try to bring in other vets to check and see what we can do. We did end up, for example, some Great Danes, there was 2 clones, one that was perfectly healthy, normal, but the other one had a very bad heart murmur, probably the worst that you can have in a dog. And we talked with the clients and asked them what if they had a preference on what they wanted to do. We had somebody in the company willing to take that puppy and raise them. And the clients were okay with that. So that one actually went to another person in the company, and that dog his heart is still a terrible murmur, but he has a massive, great, he's living a pretty healthy life, and you would have never guessed anything was wrong with him as a puppy. So I don't think, but again, I don't handle the client side of things on that end. So.
All right. Are there any laws in the US that limit what the company can do? Like, is that why you're located in where you are, or is it a free for all?
So that's a really good question. And not so much. New York, we're up here because this is where they had a lot of the equipment from when we were part of another company called Intrexon. I wasn't here when Biogen was part of Intrexon. That was a while back. But they had the lab up here already, so we just kept it up here for the dog and cat side of it. The Texas lab was already established to collect tissue. The one up in Canada, I think that was a marriage thing. One of the employees got married to somebody up there, so they just ended up living up there. There are laws, like, for example, a lot of states allow you to clone savanna cats or wolf hybrids, or own them is what it is. There aren't really laws on cloning yet, just because it's kind of the Wild West of that part of the world. But we can't have wolf hybrids here in New York. We did have a wolf hybrid clone that we made the embryos here. We put them in a surrogate, and then that surrogate we took down to Texas so she could have the puppies down there where it's legal to have wolf hybrids. So there are ways to get around it. We do not break any laws that I am aware of, and I think if we did, we would probably get in a lot of trouble, because we are out there in the public as much as we can be. So
Makes sense. All right. Someone asks, what's the difference? Oh, wait, do you have plans to progress to other kinds of animals besides mammals?
The laboratory side, we always have plans to look at that, and when we have time, we do. There are labs, usually funded by universities and stuff, that are always looking at that, and they're always generous enough to publish papers, and we'll run into them at conferences and share knowledge and things like that. So we're always looking at it. Egg-bearing species are harder to clone because their oocytes are formed differently. The eggs develop in the body differently. The concept is the same. We could potentially do that. But as far as putting embryos into a surrogate with an egg-bearing species, it is a different process, and it's not nearly as easy as, for example, like artificial insemination. It's not that easy with egg-bearing species, though it happens. It's just we haven't really had a whole lot of inquiries or interest in clients who might want to clone like a parrot or something like that. I don't think we've actually had any inquiries on that. So on the lab side, we look into it kind of as a, maybe just in case or as a hobby for us. But for the most part, the company is not looking that direction yet, just because this is still pretty new stuff.
Okay, thank you. And you may have already kind of answered this, but are there rules or laws about breeding the clones? So somebody takes it home, are they allowed to breed them, or is that part of a contract with Biogen about your product?
No, they are allowed to do whatever they want with their clone once we give it to them. I mean, this is with the understanding that this is somebody's usually beloved pet, or or a horse that's very valuable. They're not going to hopefully do anything terrible, and I don't think any of our clients would ever do anything terrible with their animals. But the dogs and stuff like that, I don't think like professional registries have really decided what to do about cloning just yet. I know the thoroughbred registry, for example, will not accept clones, will not accept breeding of clones, will not have anything to do with clones. Quarter horses are a different thing. It's going to be really neat to see where the laws go with that, because I don't think anybody really knows where it is going to go. The Summer Olympics is actually going to have a couple of cloned horses in it, and the dressage and all that. So that'll be really neat to see. And I don't know if they're even going to care on that level. I don't know if they should. That's not my area. But yeah, for the most part, if it already exists, like with the thoroughbreds, no, they require live coverage and everything for their things. They won't take clones, but the rest of it's still kind of up in the air.
So you've mentioned a couple of times that that there'll be a litter in some cases where there's more than one animal. Is this on purpose, like they ordered for, or do you do multiples for viability?
That's a good question. So what we try to do is we try to put 2 different client cell lines into one surrogate to kind of, in the hopes, limit how many are born. Dogs and cats are, litter bearing species. So if we put in, 20 amazing embryos, we might get 20 dogs. That hasn't happened yet. But what we usually try to do is aim for 15 to 20 embryos per client. Into like a dog, for example, we'll put no more than 40 embryos. But usually it's like, anywhere from 20 to 30 total, and we divide that up between 2 clients. And for the most part, that has given us pretty good results in terms of getting 1 on average, sometimes 2. We've gotten it, just based on experience, we've gotten it to where we can kind of guess. We don't implant the embryos right away. We spend a day creating them, putting them through some processes, letting the embryos kind of sit and mature. And then like a day later, we'll put them in, but the day later, so we can look and see if they're starting to divide, because you can see them as early as 24 hours splitting into 2 and 4 cells. And if we see that, we know those are going to be good embryos. We can select the good ones out and put those into the surrogate animal, and just leave anything that didn't look good out, because the uterus is a kind of a hostile environment. It tries to be better when the animal is expecting to be pregnant. But if we put 40 embryos in, there's a good chance that 70% of those are just not going to make it to implantation. A normal litter from our surrogate animals is usually 2 to 4 puppies, or in cats. Cats is really variable. Cats are a whole different animal in terms of reproduction. Despite them being pets, we just really don't know a lot about their reproductive side. So they're a lot harder for us to clone and a lot harder to predict. But dogs are pretty easy. Horses are very easy. And we've gotten to a point where we know if we put this many embryos in, there's a good chance we're going to get 1 or 2 puppies from each cell line that we put in. If we do have multiples that they didn't order, that they just paid for one, that's still their animal. whatever they want to do with them. They can take them home. They can give them to friends and family. If they just want one and don't want to deal with the others, we find them homes. That's the guarantee we give all of our clients. For the most part, most everybody wants to take home their extras. Usually they have a mom who loved the animal and is excited to have their own and things like that. So it's usually not an issue. We do have clients who will pay for 2, 3, 4, however many they want. We actually have Josh Morton, who is the owner of Canine Tactical, which is, you can look him up on Facebook. He raises Belgian Malinois to be military dogs. And we clone, he has one cell line that he just absolutely loves. And this past year alone, I think we made more than 20 of that cell line for him. So he could train him up, and he's done some really neat stuff with like school shooter dog situations, things like that. So it depends on what the client wants, and we go with that.
Wow. All right. So since this is an ever-changing field and it is still, name of science, relatively new, how do you guys test new procedures? Like, because there probably aren't scientific standards yet. You guys are the frontier for this, right?
Right. Commercially, yes. There are some labs, testing things, but for the most part, we are right there at the very edge of it. We have our developed procedures that we use, and those are standard. If we are going to test something, it's usually changing one very small, tiny variable, and it's after some research to see what changing that variable could do based on reproductive knowledge across the field. So, for example, the last thing we tested was sometimes the eggs that we get are older. We call it advanced or overly mature, to the point where we may not be able to find all the DNA in there. And so we'll take those and put those aside. And we have, just some chemicals here and there that we can test to see if maybe that'll help us see the DNA better to pull it out, or to see if maybe the cell kind of rejuvenates itself, which is a whole nother process, things like that. If we have call it extra space, if we only have like one dog to clone that week, we might go ahead and make a bunch of embryos with that one and only pick out the best to put in the surrogate, and then like look at the others and just kind of set some aside to test, maybe this chemical will make them more viable, maybe this chemical will help them survive longer, that sort of thing. For the most part, outside of a surrogate, the embryos, we could keep them alive longer. We don't, because that would require a whole lot other equipment that we don't have in the lab. For the most part, we only keep embryos alive in the incubator about a week, maybe a little bit longer if we're really trying something. But the stuff that we use is just not really made for keeping embryos alive outside of a surrogate long term. So it's mostly just when we have time, we test it on a very small scale in the lab.
Okay, thank you. And that actually answers the next questions is, do you guys do test tube babies? But and for those of you who don't know, test tube babies are basically not using a surrogate, is using, in sci-fi, you see those tubes of like liquid and you got a floating baby. Yeah. So
they actually, somebody, I don't remember who's doing it. There's a couple of them that are making artificial wombs. And I know somebody took a lamb to term, I think almost with one. And that's something they're trying in mice a lot too. And we're watching that because that's pretty neat. I don't know if we'll ever get to using that. That would have to be technology, tried and true technology before we start using it, I think. So, but yeah, people do. We don't, but we're not in that business.
all right. So back to the book. Is there any part of that actually, like, I can't talk, sorry. Does that resonate with you? Are you like, yes, that is my job, just in the more sci-fi realm?
Yeah, actually, it is a lot of fun, especially when I get to tell people what I do for a living. So that book does come up a lot. There is a lot of good actual science in that book as far as that stuff goes. There's a lot of stuff made up. He made it seem real simple that you can just get DNA from that mosquito in the amber, and that's not how that works. You can pull things out of amber, but there isn't really a whole lot in there that is traceable that you would actually be able to put nucleotides together for. So that one's a little bit out there, but the basic idea of having this DNA and putting it into an egg is literally what we do. And the fact that with Jurassic Park, it's an egg outside the body versus with mammals, it's an egg inside is really the only difference. So if we ever got to a point where we could very easily pull the DNA out of an ostrich egg and have dinosaur DNA, like it's a lot closer than we think. We'll see. Every day, every time we clone something here, do something new, or find something that works better, we joke about our T-Rex sized dogs that we're going to be walking around. So, or our dog sized T-Rexes, sorry.
That'd be amazing. So is there a book that, besides Jurassic Park, or if you wanted somebody to understand what it is that you do, or at least just be entertained by the same kind of field, do you have a recommendation?
I don't, unfortunately. Cloning is one of those things that usually gets treated with horror in sci-fi. We tested a commercial at one point in Texas. I don't know if this will ever go public for everybody, but it's a very normal commercial about how this couple cloned their dog and they're very happy with it. And I showed it to my fiance, and he's pointed out, he's like, that's the Repet commercial from that Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. For the most part, there's a lot out there that treats it as a terrible situation, and I don't blame any of those for that. The sci-fi implications are wonderful, but as far as other books go, like Jurassic Park really is the only one I think that did some good stuff with it, even though the rest of it was, I could say, arrogance on humanity's part, which is probably what would actually happen. But you would hope we would handle things better if we did actually ever go that direction.
Oh, that makes sense. So on the bad side, has there ever been like a demonstration, or has there ever been any kickback against your company, or just about what you do, from friends or family?
Yeah, there are a lot of ethical questions, like the whole rescue and adopt, don't buy your animal controversy is always there. We do, on a pretty regular basis, get told, if we're looking for somewhere to sponsor more spay neuter clinics, we have people who don't want to work with us because we're a cloning company. We're essentially creating more animals when there's plenty at the shelter that need to be adopted. So my family, for the most part, I think I have a sibling or two who doesn't necessarily like what I do, but they don't give me hell about it, and they understand that I like my job a lot and that I'm very excited about it, which I appreciate. I'm sure other people in the company have family members who question it and everything else, but for the most part, we try to approach it from a non-judgmental thing, because obviously it's our job, but also, like, if you have ever had that dog or cat that was just incredible and special, and just your absolute best friend, and letting go of them was really hard, and you would give anything to have that back, like we get that, and we approach it very scientifically. It's not the same animal, but like we all have pets that we've genetically stored, and we actually have one of our employees who cloned her dog who passed away recently, and she has a puppy at home now, and is just enjoying every second of it. And one of these days I have my old dog who passed away, and the dog that grew up with him who's still alive, but both of them are genetically preserved, and at some point, not right away, at some point in the future, though, I'll get them both cloned together, because they went through grad school and everything with me. So it'd be nice to have them further down the road. But I do want to adopt some more. My fiance would like his own special dog at some point, so we're going to put that off for a bit. But for the most part, we're a company. We do this to make money, but we also do it because it allows us to look at the endangered animal side, which a lot of us are very much into conservation and hoping that this can become a normal thing to save species going forward. Yeah, and it's just mostly just done for the love of the animals. Like nobody in our company is, everybody has pets. We all have multiple species. Yeah, we have some great pictures of just like the owner of the company sitting on the floor. He's this gigantic, almost 7 foot tall rancher looking guy who was sitting on the floor with all these little tiny puppies crawling at him, client puppies. And it's just this wonderful picture that I think illustrates, our company wonderfully. And I wish they'd share that publicly, but he's kind of a privater person. So, but yeah, so there are ethical questions, and ours is no judgment, and we don't begrudge anybody who would rather buy a purebred dog or clone or get some from the shelter, because we all have a variety of those ourselves. So,
and I can't help but now this is going off of the Jurassic Park subsequent movies. So the black market potential for this just blows my mind. So have you or some of your coworkers been approached by, sideways companies who are looking to do stuff on the side?
Not that I'm aware of. I know the immediate group here in New York, if anybody we probably would have told each other, because we're pretty close. But like the rest of them, I don't think the people in Texas, I feel like they would, have to share that news too, because that would be pretty incredible. For the most part, just because there really isn't a way yet to do much. No, not so much. Like the most we've done is give Josh Morton a deal on all of his Belgian Malinois. So, but he's turning those around and using them for good, as far as I know. So.
What about other countries? Are you aware of what other countries are doing genetically? Genetically,
no. Suam is another cloning company in South Korea. I don't know about their practices a whole lot. I've heard rumors. The rumors I've heard are not fantastic what they do with their animals, because they don't, view animals, especially pets, like the way we do here in the States. But I can't substantiate those and everything else. So who knows if the rumors are true or not. We have had 2 or 3 clients that started at Suam who have come to us with their samples, and they want us to clone because they didn't like what Suam has done, but I don't know the details on all of that. I think that's some legal stuff that they're not necessarily allowed to go into. I do know that they are trying to do more cloning in China, and we all know about the controversy a year or 2 ago where somebody supposedly cloned some people, and who knows where that's going. So there is always that potential out there. Yeah, it's weird to think about, and hopefully none of that actually ever happens. But once you start going, especially with extinct species, who knows, especially with CRISPR, we don't know the extent of where that can go, and we won't know until we get there. So yeah.
So if somebody wants to work with cloning animals, like what is the educational process that somebody has to go through to get to play with baby puppies?
We have a lot of paths. If you want to work in the lab, the best thing to do is to go into animal science. Usually that involves kind of like a pre-veterinary program. You start at pre-vet at one of those colleges for 4 years, and you go into grad school. Reproductive fields, people or animals are good to get into. Dennis, for example, was a human embryologist before he came here. I was livestock, who is our Sean, who is our other embryologist. He was a livestock as well. He did cattle and such before horses. So that path is pretty much the best way to get into the cloning lab. But cell culture is another way to get there. That's pretty basic laboratory procedure. So, you don't need a whole lot of education for that, but some is good. We have customer service and HR. the things that our customer service people have to deal with. I've blessed them because I don't know that I could deal with clients as much as they could, and they're wonderful at that. So if you have people skills, that's a way to get in here. What else do we have? Yeah, and then just animal husbandry, because we always need people to actually socialize the puppies and play with the puppies and hang out with the horses and everything else. So there's only 14 of us in the company in Biogen. We all do various things, but I think everybody helps deliver animals at some point. I'm going to say flying on a plane with a puppy is a whole lot of fun and gets you a lot of attention, and delivering somebody's puppy to them is just I don't know, it's a wonderful experience and really makes the whole thing complete. So yeah, there's lots of paths there, but if you want to clone, you have to go through a lot more schooling.
I think that's the part that surprised me the most, that the embryologist would actually get to play with and deliver the puppies. That's a big heads up for me.
Oh yeah. I don't know if this job, I mean, the job's cool. I really love the math science part of it, but if we didn't have the puppy part of it, I don't know that it would be nearly as cool as it is.
That is fair. All right, everybody. So I am going through the chat. We have asked all the questions in the chat. Please feel free to enter any more in there. I will. So again, this is being recorded. So everybody, at the end of this, along with the survey, you will get a link to the recording. So if you missed any part of this, don't worry. There's a rewind button on there. All right. Jillian, is there anything else that you'd like to share with us that you just wish everybody knew?
Going back to that ethics thing, I know we have clients who, we have one client that I have in particular in mind who devoted 20 years to helping some rescues and donated money, time, everything. She was on their board for a long time. She homed in her own home so many cats and kittens over time and everything. And, she was very passionate about it. She took the risk of cloning her own cat, just one cat, and got so much help from that rescue organization for that, that she just kind of resigned from the board and everything else. It's been hard on her, that sort of thing, but the main thing that I always try to, when I talk to people about this, is like the people who are cloning, yes, they have the money for it, but they're normal people. They care about their animals, everything else. And this client in particular, it's just kind of heart-wrenching to see something that she was passionate about. And she had that one cat that she just wanted back and everything else. And she had to quit her 20-year lifelong commitment just because they were giving her so much hell over being a little selfish for herself that one time. So if people can just remember, it is a weird thing. But like the people who are getting their animals cloned are people, they're not weird, selfish monsters or anything. That would be the main takeaway as far as I can think of.
Right. Well, thank you very much. This is so interesting. I've been wondering about all of this stuff. This is great. So as a pure librarian thing, do you have a book recommendation? Any book recommendation or movie, TV show?
We'll say my absolute favorite, I read it once a year book, is Watership Down. If you guys are looking for anything in particular. I know it traumatized a lot of kids and stuff, but oh man, it's such a good book. That'd be a recommendation. Nothing science in it, just some rabbits going on a Lord of the Rings adventure. But
it is based off of Tecumseh. That's based in Ohio.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. That's awesome. I need to get out to Ohio more. I've grown up in the Southwest, and this is my first couple of years up here this far north. So
it's greener. Ohio is greener than people from the South realize, especially the Southwest. Way greener. We also have all of the seasons. So
right, yeah. And you guys have that beautiful Cayuga National Park. So that's definitely high on my list.
All right, everybody. This is last call for questions. All right. It looks, dead in the water. Okay. So everybody, thank you so much for coming. And Jillian, this was amazing. Thank you so much. We very much appreciate you taking the time and the effort to share all of this with us. So thank you.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, on that note, then we are going to call it a wrap. Everybody, again, thank you for coming. And Jillian, I will send you a link with all of the stuff, including an original of the recording for you to keep and do with what you will.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Good night, everybody. Goodbye.